Hey Paul, so for everyone who doesn't know you, can you introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Paul Bashir and I do animal rights activism.
So I see on your t-shirt, Anonymous for the Voiceless. Can you explain to the viewers what it is and what it's all about?
AV is a street activism organization that focuses on the plight of non-human animals at the hands of humans.
What is your definition or AV's definition of veganism? There have been a lot of talks in the past weeks about it. So I was just wondering, what is your definition of being vegan?
My definition is simply being pro-animal rights as a human being. That's what being vegan means to me. And animal rights is simply the right to liberty and to not be subjected to oppression, especially violent oppression, which is what we're talking about here. We're talking about violently oppressing animals. So you've got to be against that, which means you're pro-animal rights, and we're talking about basic fundamental rights here. And that's all it means to be vegan.
Okay, so I guess that's answering the next question. Why are you vegan? And why should everyone else go vegan? How about outreaching a non-vegan? If I was non-vegan, I was going to you at a cube. How would you approach me? What would you, in a nutshell, tell me so that I would go vegan right away?
So we'll do a role play, okay? Right, so you're a non-vegan bystander. All right, so you come up to the cube, you're watching the footage, and then I say, how does this footage make you feel? You have to answer that.
I would say, yeah, it makes me feel very sick.
Yeah, and most people say something like that. Is it safe to say that you are against animal abuse?
Yeah, I'm against it, yeah.
Okay. Would you say that it's possible to be against animal abuse while eating animal products such as meat, dairy, and eggs?
No.
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 Okay. What do you feel is stopping you from no longer abusing animals and being vegan?
The usual answers would be, yeah, it's a habit. I can't imagine. It's inconvenient.
Yeah, okay. So for a moment, just imagine that you're in their position, right? Would you deem it justifiable for your oppressor to say it's inconvenient to stop oppressing you?
No.
Right. So convenience isn't a justification whatsoever, right? Right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So if you were in their position, let's go back to that. How urgent would you say it is that whoever's responsible for oppressing you ends that and stops immediately?
I would say just stop it right now.
Right. Yeah. So what are you going to do from this point on?
I'm going to go vegan.
There's more that I would usually get into, but you're like, I read it case by case, and in this case, you sound like a really easy bystander.
So AV's slogan used to be animals, environment, health, and that has changed in the past years. Why is it so important that we never talk about the health aspects and the environment when doing outreach and talking about animal rights?
It's important because the environmentalism movement is important, and it's a separate movement to the animal rights movement. Same with health. Human health is another way of saying human rights, because it's your right to pursue well-being. And taking care of yourself has nothing to do with the rights of these individuals who are being oppressed by humans, actually, right? So when we are talking about veganism and we're trying to convince non-vegans to be vegan, we're talking about representing the most commonly oppressed animal is the cow, the chicken, the pig, the fish. You know what I mean? These animals are being oppressed by human beings. Beyond distasteful to be then bringing human rights into this and saying that this is about human rights when it's actually the humans who are the transgressors and the oppressors in this situation. And so when I realized this, I realized that it is extremely important that the animals have a cause dedicated to them, their plight at the hands of humans, and it's focused, the work is focused on exactly what the reality is for them. When you conflate other things on top of it, it diminishes the importance of what is happening simply to these individuals, and that being real enough and serious enough for people to act accordingly. And that's why it's important to not conflate anything with animal rights.
Very good. I think the last sentence just summarizes it in a nutshell. AV's message is always, or has always been, clear and direct. It's go vegan now. Why don't you support people reducing their animal products consumption, or being vegetarian, or people taking baby steps?
Because again, that doesn't address the issue, and we would never say that regarding any other justice issue. We would never say it's okay to beat your wife 1 time a week instead of 7. You know, so like, why are we promoting a reduction of suffering when it is perfectly viable and adequate for anyone in a modern society to live vegan?
All right. Who is, in your mind, the best animal rights activist, and why?
I think anyone who's watching this that knows anything about me already knows what the answer is going to be, and it's Gary Yourofsky.
And what would be the best video of him you would recommend one watching?
I actually think the excuses speech in 2014 that he did in Detroit was the best. And he actually agreed that was his favorite one as well. I think it was the last one he did as well. And you can really tell that he put everything into it. And then it's a bit different from that. It's a bit different from the best speech you'll ever hear, the speech that is famous, everybody knows about, from Georgia Tech from 2010. So this is 4 years after that. And he crushed it. He absolutely crushed it. And if you're an activist, or you're vegan, someone who's vegan trying to get into activism, or you're interested in getting into activism, I'd recommend watching that speech, because there's so many good angles that he takes in that, and so many good points he makes, and the way he delivers it. It's a masterpiece.
Totally agree. What's the dumbest excuse you've ever heard for not going vegan?
I have a friend. He's actually my barber, and we became friends over the years because I'd been going to him for like 15 years. And I've been trying to get him to go vegan for a long time now. He said something I've never heard before, and it is quite literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And it is that when you kill animals, you do them a favor and release their souls so they have the chance to become human. He said this with a straight face, with full conviction.
Not even kidding.
No, he's not kidding. He's not. Yeah, so as much as it is hilarious and completely idiotic, it's also really scary that he thinks like that. That has to be the most remarkable that I've ever heard.
What do you think about people feeding our animal companions, like cats and dogs, non-vegan food?
I don't like it. If you can feed them plant-based, you really have a moral obligation to do so. And for those who go, oh, you can't do it with certain... You probably can, but let's be real, you're not willing to try. You've got to do the research, and that means really doing the research, and that means really trying after the fact, and that means you stick it out until you really get to the point of actually knowing whether it works or not. The research is out there, and you might have to supplement at best. For dogs, it's super easy. For cats, I think there's maybe 1 supplement you need to throw in the mix, maybe 2. And if that's all you have to do to avoid countless animals being subjected to violence for your one individual that you have as a companion, then you really have an obligation, and I don't know how anyone can see it any other way.
And let's say even if it was a malnourishment for a cat or a dog, it would still not justify putting other animal beings in slaughterhouses just for one cat not being maybe malnourished. But we have evidence and a lot of examples of cats being vegan. So yeah, I also think there's no justification. And yeah, do you have to be an animal lover to go vegan? Because a lot of people may just say, oh, I don't like animals, non-human animals. So why should I go vegan?
You don't need to love animals. People can hate you and think that you're the worst person on earth in their opinion. That doesn't give them the right to strip your basic rights from you.
All right. Now let's go back to AV. What do you think about people copying AV with a cube formation, but with a different organization?
I think people who do that are just using a model that they know works, and then they try to add their own spin to it. I have no problem with anyone doing that. We've always said from the very beginning, if you want to do the cube, go ahead and do it. The only thing that we ask is that when you take something from what we have brought to the table and you use it, that you do it under a different name, because you're not actually doing a cube of truth, you're doing whatever version of a cube you're going to do. A cube of truth is a specific model of street activism that AV does and has always done, and we brought to the table from the beginning. And so that's all that I feel that people need to take into account if they do that. But I really don't care, even if, we ask that, but even if you are like, fuck you, I'm going to do this anyway, like, I still don't care. You can go off and do that, because what you may not realize is that you're providing more of a reason for people to see the value in our work. When, like, people who rock fake Gucci bags are only proving the value of Gucci bags. You're still helping us, because you're showing that the value of our work is profound enough that you want to copy it.
And there's also a risk if they call it a Cube of Truth or Anonymous for the Voiceless organization, that they might spread the wrong message, like not a direct approach and like a baby step approach. So that's also maybe an issue.
Yeah, but we don't worry ourselves with that anymore, because we're too widespread for people to really get away with that for too long. Even in these cities where it is happening, we get people messaging us all the time saying, what's going on? Why isn't there an AV thing happening in this city? They know that it's not AV. So, yeah, I guess for those who are just confused and don't know better, they get away with this with those people, but it doesn't happen for too long. And yeah, we don't care to even try to control that, because it'll figure itself out. We believe it will just be self-regulatory.
All right. So AV is a peaceful demonstration showing the public the truth. How do you feel about people taking direct action? So, for example, liberating animals.
I love it. Yeah, I've done a bit of that myself. The fact that they're labeled as property is disgusting, to say the least. And that's when laws should not be respected in that case. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Well said, fully agree. Okay, so now let's get into some personal questions. So, I know that you've been doing music before being an animal rights activist. Let's hear you do some rapping.